Good morning, everybody. Hath Squile, Michelle Nahanee, Kwi Ansna, Eslahan o Humeo, Sko Omish Otho Humeo. As you've heard, my name is Michelle Nahanee. I'm saying good day to you. I'm from the village of Eslahan. I'm a member of the Squamish Nation. I'm super grateful to be here today. Thanks, Creative Mornings, for inviting me, for giving me the power of the mic. This is actually power that isn't normally shared with us. So I think to invite Squamish voices into the public sphere in Vancouver is a decolonizing practice. So super grateful for you to do that and for inviting my relatives, my Sequatl, to be here with me. It really means a lot. So I want to talk today about my game. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my past, my present, and then we'll talk a little bit about the future. This is where I'm from. So we call it Eslahan now, but when I grew up, it was called Mission Indian Village. This is just across the water here, where the Seabus station is now. So like I said, we call it Eslahan, which is our reclaiming of our name, and so that's Indigenous Cultural Resurgence. Legally, it's actually still called Mission Indian Reserve No. 1, and I love it. It's my favorite place to be. I've got a photo here of my grandmother, Eva May Nahanee. She is a weaver. And then there's a photo of our traditional territory right here. So you'll see Vancouver, Squamish, but these are our hunting areas, our spiritual areas. And so when you think about Squamish people, we're more than our reserves. We call them communities, actually, and we have a lot of love there, spiritual practices there, ways that we approach things that are just so much bigger than a narrative that we're given. And so that's my work as a critical communication scholar. What I'm doing is taking words, deconstructing them, and trying to add new meaning to them. As a graphic designer, I've done that for 20 years now. I've been making corporate communications and branding, but always like with an urge, with a drive to change how people see us. Right? Make sure that we look great. Make sure that the messages change about who we are, that we're not less than, and that these are constructions, so they're not real. And what that also means is that as creatives, we get to change that. So I applaud you for your creative work, and I hope that you're also contributing to this kind of change. Today's theme for me about chaos, I'm actually advocating for chaos, because I think order got us into a lot of trouble, right? So order says, whose voice gets to be on the mic, right? So that's order. Chaos means that we can jump into the unknown. So I have a saying, I have a photo that I use regularly, and I asked my auntie once, I was complaining about my work as a graphic designer and all the sort of graphic design troubles that we have, and then she said to me, Michelle, you need to learn to love the bomb. So this is me. This is me loving the bomb. I literally ride the bomb. So that's so fun being a designer, right? That we get to create what we want, right? And so these are my aunties up in the top corner here. This is me actually on the mic on this stage at an event called Emma Talks, which also shifts the power of the mic and shares it out. So I was really proud of that. I bring up Emma Talks because that was an event of chaos for me. So that was an event where a close friend, Carla Bergman, said, I want you to create something, and I want you to curate an event about Squamish culture. And so I designed an event called Squamish Matriarchs. And I invited Chief Janice George, one of my favorite people, up on stage, and then a younger woman named Salia Joseph to talk about being Squamish women. And so back to us being in our territory and getting space, right? So these are also decolonial acts, right? Like we can open your events beautifully, right? And we can also be keynote speakers, and we can also consult and take contracts and do all these things. So I'm always about, trying to open up the doors for us. Riding the bomb, I invite you to do the same, right? And to follow, I actually have another saying, it's called, I just follow creativity. And so I'm analyzing, is creativity here? And then I decide if I take a contract or not. Is creativity in this relationship? And then I'm there, and I'm 100% there, and we mix it up together in that chaos, and then we see what happens. So one of the things that happened is this game. So I designed a giant board game, and it's called Scenic Iron Ladders. It's based in snakes and ladders, but I use Scenic Iron as our double-headed sea serpent in Squamish. And what I'm looking at are neo-colonial scenarios, what look like helping, but are actually harmful. So you can see in the photo, this is from a workshop that I did recently with Amanda, who is my settler accomplice in this work. And the brave people, including Mark, joined us, who sit in a circle and play the game and talk through these scenarios and try to look at things differently and open them up, right? So, for example, the very first square is this move beyond neo-colonial denial and admit there are problems. So unless you can do that, you can't be in the game. That's the first step. And we actually ask people, can you do that? And then they say yes, and then they get to roll the dice and come on in. But I'll just break it open a little more. So what is neo-colonial denial? I call it this idea of things, when people say things to us like, oh, you should get over it, that happened in the past, or even using the term colonial, just really frames it in something like hundreds of years ago, right? And so I'm really working with the word neo-colonial to say now, what oppressions happen when we're working together? What oppressions happen that are normalized, right? So a neo-colonial denial is just to pretend that everything's fine, right? That there aren't any inequities. And there's a lot of stuff that bubbles up with that. There's different kinds of guilt, there's different kinds of things that people don't want to admit to, and so the chaos would be to say, yeah, maybe there is neo-colonial oppression, and just feel that, but keep going, right? Get on the bomb, keep going. And so an example of a square, so I use the Squamish term "chenchensdwai," which is to lift each other up. So every ladder in my game is an act where we're lifting each other up, and you're in good relations with Indigenous folks. So this one, ask an Indigenous speaker to open your event, is like the first chenchensdwai or ladder, right, in Snakes and Ladders. And so if somebody rolls that and lands in there, they walk up the ladder and we applaud them because it's great, right? But then the next to that is a Scenic. There's a square that says, fail to have the honorarium ready on the day of the event. And then they slide down, right? Feel a little bit bad, and we all say, oh, that's too bad, and try to support them through the mistake. But the theme of the game is we learn the mistake and we stay in it, right? And so you get a chance for a redo. We're in chaos, we're in a new space, right? Talk a little bit about, an honorarium is just having a decolonizing practice of understanding, that when an Indigenous elder comes, like think of them as an expert, like the way you would invite any other expert from any industry. They're bringing specialized knowledge, right? So you'll pay them. The same thing with our elders, right? And then it's even more special, because these are teachings from thousands of years ago, right? And when they come in their regalia and, you say, well, our accounts payable department will get in touch with you, and there's 4 more forms to fill out, right? It's just not very respectful. These are different systems. Decolonizing practices to understand these are different systems and have the honorarium ready or help them get through the accounts payable system, right? So that's the game. I think I just wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening with the game right now. It's going up at Skookumfest. So there's a 20-foot version of it on a wall at Skookumfest this weekend, which is really exciting. And we were invited to show it at Vancouver Mural Festival this summer. And then, like I said, we were doing some in-house workshops with folks who really want to think about what are their decolonizing practices for their organizations, for the individuals. So I'm quite excited about the game. I really, in terms of my chaos to create the game, it came from an invitation from a friend. And then it came from this idea of how did I want to bring some of these ideas to life? I don't think it's helpful for me just to be like the angry Native woman. Like that's just such an that's not even who we are. We're so based in love. We're so about Chenchensdwai. We're so about supporting you, right? So, to be your hosts to be a bad host is embarrassing to us. So of course in a conversation, like we want to take care, that's who we are, right? I talk a lot about matriarchy in my work, and so this is something that I wrote in my MA, is it's called Decolonizing Identity, Indian Girl to Squamish Matriarch, and then I traced the naming conventions. So I was born Squamish, and then I went to school in the 70s, and I started to understand that Indian was bad, right? And so then we became natives because we're a political family, right? And then we're Aboriginal, First Nations. I think we're at Indigenous now. and then, finally I'm back to that I am Squamish. I'm Squamish and thinking about matriarchy. And so I'm thinking about myself as a leader, as a woman leader. What are those traits? I'm reaching back to like ancient traditions that actually have always been supported in my family. I've been talked to like a leader. I raised my daughter like a leader. And I think that's a way forward. That's a way of breaking apart. It's not about being against men. Like anybody can exhibit matriarchy. It's really about care. But I also talk about reprimand, right? So what I'm doing in this game is there are ways that I'm calling in, right? This is not a call out game. This is a call in game. These are situations that are normalized, but they need to be called in, and we need to really figure out what's next, right? So decolonizing isn't about me telling people what to do, because that would be colonial, right? What I can do, though, is create a framework of conversations, share some ideas, right? Chenchen lifting each other up. Sinokai, a double-headed serpent. So thinking that any situation could be helping, but it might also be harmful. And so the decolonizing practice is to really analyze that, right? So for example, there's another square that people here might relate to, which is, hire an Indigenous talent, right? But then overmanage the project so that it's your ideas, of authentic Indigenous culture. Of course, as a designer, how many times I've been asked to draw like a Pan-Aboriginal logo, right? And really overmanage through that process. So you see some designers in the crowd understanding that, right? Or paying Indigenous talent less than, or sort of adding us in. Somebody told me it was called the shake and stir model of inclusion, right? Just throw a few natives in and then you're okay because you had your inclusion, right? So I guess, back to like order and chaos and creativity. I believe in it. I'm in the field to make change. I'm an unlikely speaker, actually. I'm a kid that had a really bad speech impediment. And, I'm a kid, I was in foster care, because I'm Native, like so many of our kids are in foster care. There's many reasons like why I should not be up on the stage talking to you. But I did take a chance on my life. I went back to school. I went and just finished an MA last year, starting a PhD this week. Yeah. It's amazing, and I'm someone, I don't have my grade 12. I have a GED from Native Ed Center. But I'm actually an amazing writer, but I never knew that I would be an amazing writer. And I'm almost an amazing writer because of my speech impediment, because I read so much as a kid, and I taught myself, because we couldn't afford therapy or anything, but I actually taught myself to not stutter by reading aloud. So I just would be alone reading aloud. And that just really got me into books. It got me, excited about the world. My family are big readers too. So I guess that's a bit of chaos too, right? It's just following the books, following the creativity, not believing in the constructions. And now a big part of my job is, getting out there and sharing that idea, especially with other Indigenous women, especially with other people who want to be settler accomplices. I'll just share that term with you too. So I guess settler ally, is something that a lot of people use, right? But an accomplice is someone who will get in the danger with you. They'll get in the chaos with you. And when Amanda and I run these circles, right? Sometimes they can get emotional and people are processing, the guilt and the shame of it. And then as someone who's taught at university, I know that we can't learn from sitting in the guilt and the shame. We can't make the change there, right? So this is why I designed the game. This is why I do the work, to make sure that we're staying in love, we're staying in our Squamish teachings of Chen Chen's Twai, right? And trying to just insert that a little bit into our traditional territory here in Vancouver, to let people know that, Squamish ideas can help all of us. That they're not something that just has to be left in the past. They're innovations. This is actually social innovation. So it's not just something that belongs at university level. And I didn't bring it, but I also created a playbook. It's called an activity book, decolonizing activity book. And I made a new Indian agent paper doll. And I made these talking flashcards with my daughter for decolonized vocabulary. And so really just trying to play, as a designer with ways to reframe, ways to learn. A lot of this order, right, starts in elementary school. Like that's when we get there, and counting goes this way and gender looks like this. And this is where I think all the trouble starts. So this is why I'm playing with games, why I'm playing with activity books. And I'm not sure, what's next with the matriarchy. We'll have to figure that one out yet. So I'm pretty excited about what's next, like any creative person, right? But I'm also really enjoying speaking about my game. And there's a bit of information online, or if you're at Skookum Fest this summer, it'll be there. So yeah, I definitely encourage you to just, be open to the chaos. I guess when I first thought of the word decolonization, I used to just sort of ignore it. Like it's so big. It's so big to think about. So, and actually now that I work in that field, it won't actually happen, right? There won't be decolonization. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try every day to have a decolonizing practice, a way to look at things differently, a way to speak differently, a way to approach power differently, right? So that's a decolonizing practice. And yeah, so I used to dismiss the word decolonization. I guess I was, successfully colonized at one point. And the critical communications work has really brought me into Indigenous scholarship. We're actually, in this huge resurgence. There's so many amazing Indigenous writers right now, and I'm really excited to get to spend more time reading them and working out, my next level ideas of matriarchal takeover. So don't be scared, guys. It'll be a lot of fun. Oh, okay. I guess, yeah, so my next steps are like I said, yeah, I'm going on to do this PhD. I'm going to do a research project on Squamish matriarchy in my community, create models for other communities, to also rework their stories, publish their stories, take back this power, right? Like the power of the mic, the power of the camera, right? Who's running the camera, who's sharing the stories. So I'm interested in co-creation. I'm interested in, in shifting narratives, and it is all happening right now. There are many great Indigenous filmmakers and musicians, and so just encourage you to jump in and share some of the water with us, and think about Chen Chen's Twai. Think about are we lifting each other up right now? Think about your own ancestral cultures, right? That each of us has these ancient roots to reach back to, right? So something kind of dangerous that happens right now with Indigenous cultural resurgence is actually like an Indigenous supremacy. So we don't want that either. Like that's actually like a fetishization, right? So, but I really love to hear one of my biggest successes when I was teaching decolonizing dialogues at SFU was one of my Korean students told me that he was going to stop trying to be North American, right? And that was a huge success to me. And I did bring everybody over to Chief Janice's weaving studio and got them to figure out how to take the bus to the res. They were shocked that we weren't on the Google Maps. So that was the first lesson. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. So Chen Chen Swai to all of you. Hoichka, I look forward to your questions. And thank you again for listening.
So we're going to turn our attention back to our speaker today. And you had a chance to digest together in your small group conversation and have a bit of a window of time to offer some things back to Michelle. And really wanting to reframe this, thinking about how Q&A can be very colonial. It's just like, I have a question and I am demanding an answer of you. And so how do we shift that? How can we shift that to that practice of Chen Chen Swai, holding each other up? Doing it from a place of love, from a place of gratitude, and I think of it as a gift to this whole room. And so a place for a few voices to offer a gift back to Michelle might be in the form of a question. The space is open, and Mark is going to run some mics around the room. Here's some voices.
I am, but I'm going to start. Can you hit the next slide?
Next slide.
So one of the things we're doing in the spirit of that is we've stopped referring to this as Q&A. This is questions and listening, Q&L. And I invite you to think about what that means to you. Okay, so I'm going to make a confession. I'm going to ask an uncomfortable question and some advice from a teacher. The confession. We have no shortage of like-minded for-profit organizations that see you as a profit opportunity and ask to give us money to pay for these that we say no to because it's not a good fit. Sometimes we have organizations in the wings. I'm not going to name anyone. There were 1 and 2 organizations lined up for this month who in subsequent order asked to be postponed and not be associated with today because the word decolonization was in play. I didn't know what to say. What do we do when we encounter that in our world? When it's an economic thing, and I mean I get it, I get it. There's context there. But when presented with that moment, if I'm going to be more than just an ally, if I'm your accomplice, what do I say in that moment?
Well, yeah, you definitely have to say something.
Oh, by the way,
Right.
and kudos to Stuart. Where's Stuart again? Where's Stuart go?
Right here.
That guy. That guy. Van City.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely going to mention Stewart and Van City because, for every 2 that will turn away, there will be 2 that want to join the conversation. And that's why I have that as my first square, because if you're not in the game with me, they're not ready for the game, right? So it would be colonial for us to try to pull them in the game, right? Like colonialism and neocolonialism is a lot like addiction, right? It's something that you don't know. People don't know when they're in addiction that they're in addiction, right? So I try to use that as a comparative, like to colonial thinking, to oppressive thinking. When people are in that space, they don't know. And, for us to bonk them over the head with your decolonizing wand, right, is actually going to be oppressive. So they're not ready for the conversation, but also, yeah, be an accomplice, right? Say something. Don't be a bystander. Find the message that works for you. I'm sure Mark said something.
Me? A blunt, opinionated, forthright person? No.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do the
Thanks.
back half of the room. You're going to do the front half of the room. I have someone over here. Can you tell us your name when you stand up?
Hi, my name is Laura. I just wanted to make a comment about you taking over the world, and I applaud you for that. And if you need any help, I'm in.
Thank you. Well, Mark just recommended me for chief of staff if Ian gets in as mayor, so I appreciate that. No, there's definitely stuff that everyone can do, right? There's your little piece of the world, and then where can you push, right? Where can you push forward? And then yes, you're part of the movement, right? However big or small, do something. So, Hoichka, thank you so much. Any other questions?
Trying to scan the crowd. Oh, one by Mark.
I have one back here. Oh, I'm going to go to this side. Is that okay? Can I go here to the side first?
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm just wondering, sort of as femme folk who have a lot of
emotional labor to do to exist in a patriarchal world. How do we take over? But also, what are your recommendations for decolonizing with self-care in mind? Like, how do you not burn out with all the intersections that you play with, that you work in? What are your thoughts on taking care of yourself first?
No, yeah, emotional labor is really a big thing, and it's good that we have that term to bring up right now. And so I'm very analytical, like I said, about following creativity, right? So when I'm in a conversation with somebody, if they just want to prove their point and put mine down, or whether we really want to explore something together. And so I'm really clear about, I can't talk to you about this right now. There's a lot of great books online. Maybe check them out, right? And so that's my line, right? And so I definitely, try to analyze the situation. Is this actually going somewhere? Are we lifting each other up? Yeah, super important for self-care, super important. How we grow the movement is incremental, right? It's one relationship at a time. Like I said, my game came from my friendship with Carla. The workshop is growing from my friendship with Amanda. People in my life that I'm just connecting deeper and deeper with, and then just keep expanding, right? So this is like the new order, like, where chaos and connecting can happen. So I just say, like, really good relationships is how we grow the movement.
Hi, my name's Christine. I was a bit sad when I heard you say that you don't think decolonization will happen.
Okay.
You mean, like, it's not going to happen this year, right? It will eventually, maybe not in our lifetime, but hopefully. Can you speak maybe a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. No, I'm happy to expand. And yeah, I didn't want to put that framework on it. But I think I was just trying to say that, that's one way to dismiss it, right? Or like, is to be able to ignore it. The actual word itself, decolonization, like, I'm not going anywhere, you're not going anywhere. Like, we will continue to coexist, right? And hopefully better and better ways, right? Is what I'm more interested in. Decolonization, as a framework and a new way of thinking, sure, right? But the actual physical decolonization, like, won't happen. I guess that's why I'm trying to say that. That's just why I say it. Decolonization won't happen because we need to keep coexisting and doing it better.
And we have one in the front here. I'll hand the mic over.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Webster, and I'm New Hawk and Cayuga, so I'm Indigenous like Michelle. I just wanted to say that how is it, because I really love your workshop about decolonization, and I see that need a lot within the non-for-profit sector, because it's not like a government organization where they have structured like how to deal with people. They don't have an HR sort of thing. So so there's issues and problematic things that come up with being an Indigenous person within an organization, and I would like to say colonial structure. How can also too, I see like acts of oppression happen with not only me but other marginalized people, and and I see bystanders who are compassionate and they don't have those conversations with their own peers that are also managers within these sort of organizations, to have those conversations, to be like, yo, this is inappropriate. So yeah, how can, as an Indigenous woman within the world, how can we engage that conversation to support other people to have those conversations? If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's the thing about the neocolonial oppression, is it's so normalized, right? And there's people who benefit from bystanding, right? That's how we got here. That's how all of it works. And so who can disrupt it? Definitely we can, right? And definitely, hopefully, more accomplices come along. It really is why I started the game, because it was, from oppression in the workplace and listening to stories from my friends and my mentors and elders, being not treated very well, from people who are in the helping industries, right? And so it was really, really where the game bubbled up from, is wanting to have the conversations. So yeah, I think, just trying to connect with the people that are safe in that place, right? Try to get funding to bring in our workshop, maybe leave little posters around the place, anonymous posters. I actually love anonymous posters. But yeah, I know, I think, I'm thinking about that too, like as I head into my PhD, like how I can do campaigns. So if people are interested in doing like disruptive campaigns, I know you're a designer as well, so maybe we could collaborate on a disruptive campaign. But yeah, definitely want to use powers for good. And yeah, just try to stay safe. And then also really try to get to a place where, you don't have to work with people like that, right? Yeah, I made that decision a few years ago that I actually only work with people who know people that I know, and where there's love and creativity. And if those factors for success aren't present, then I'm not there either. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Before Amanda says that we're going to cut it off because she's a better facilitator than I am, my last quick question for you is, if there's one book that we should all read, what comes to mind?
So many. There's so many great books right now. I really love Carla Bergman's book, Joyful Militancy. I would definitely recommend that. And she does interview Indigenous activists and also global activists, Canadian American. And it's a way of staying in this hard work, but taking care, right? And really approaching good relationships. So I would definitely recommend that book. And then, yeah, and there's so many great Indigenous authors right now. So just start where you're comfortable and then go in a little bit deeper, I have to say. Thanks.
What was the second book?
Oh, I just say just find like Indigenous authors like that work in your genre, right? And then go a little bit deeper. So start with some literature, try to understand how we're thinking about things, and then go in a little bit deeper with the theory.
Super. I think before you leave, Mark has a quick thing for you, Michelle.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much.
Mark, did you want to say anything? Huge thank you to Michelle for being here today.